Today we're going to change the oil on a JL Rubicon. This is any Jeep with a 3.6 liter V6 Pentastar engine. The first step is to pop the hood. Second thing I like to do is remove the oil cap. It says engine oil and the oil grate. I simply set it aside. The next thing you'll need to do is to assemble the following. A big piece of cardboard. You're also going to need a catch pan. I like the big catch pans. The little ones will work if that's what you've got, but a nice big one prevents a lot of spills. I also like to keep a bunch of shop rags handy. You may not need them, but if you do need them, you'll want them handy, I promise. And you also need the following. This is a 3/8 inch ratchet, and this is a 1/2 inch socket to go on your 3/8 inch ratchet. After this, you slide everything under the Jeep. All right, down here under the Jeep, what you want to do is locate the oil pan, which is here. And on the oil pan, here's the drain plug right there. You want to position your catch pan directly underneath it and be ready to adjust the position of the catch pan in a little bit. You take your 1/2 inch socket and your ratchet and go ahead and break this drain plug loose. Once it's broken loose, I like to switch to my fingers. And one of the things I'm very careful about is I try not to drop this drain plug. And I'll push on it just a little bit until I can tell it's out, and then pop it out. And adjust the catch pan to catch the oil. Okay, once this is going to a slow drip, you want to clean off your drain plug with one of the rags that we talked about. Get the oil off of it, just so you can give a good inspection. The nice part about these drain plugs is that there's a really nice thick rubber seal right here. So look at that very closely for any kind of cracks. Mine looks pretty good. This is still a pretty new Jeep. And once this is turned down to this very slow drip, little drizzle here, you can reinstall this plug. So I go by hand. And this does not need to be super tight because of that rubber seal in there. And then I wipe up all the drips. We've got a nice clean job. Now we'll go up top. Next, we're going to remove the oil filter. To get started, you'll need a 15/16 socket. I'm using a 1/2 inch drive socket and a 12 point. I also like to use an extension. This is about a 6 inch extension. And then a 1/2 inch drive ratchet. That's the assembly. Once you've got your tools assembled, you'll locate the oil filter. You'll find the filter located right here behind the alternator on a 3.6 liter Pentastar. Go ahead and install your ratchet and loosen the filter assembly. A little bit way through, I like to switch to this mode and treat this like a screwdriver. Once the filter, unscrew the rest by hand and remove the entire filter assembly from the Jeep. Once you've got your filter assembly removed from the Jeep, go ahead and get yourself a clean work area. And the first thing that I like to have is a plastic sack. So take my plastic sack, I pop the filter out. Just go ahead and throw it in a plastic sack. So avoid getting everything messy. Set that aside. The next thing you've got to do is remove the O-ring off of this. I don't know if you can see that, but it's right here. And I always try to pull this O-ring off in such a way that I don't scratch everything up. And I use a little flat screwdriver. And Admittedly, I struggle with this sometimes. But I pull out on it so I'm not scratching it, and I just kind of work it up and around. Okay, set the O-ring aside. Alright, the next thing you do, wipe your hands off, get your new oil filter. Inside the new oil filter box, you'll find the filter and the new O-ring. The new O-ring, you should put a little bit of oil on it. There's oil everywhere in here, okay? So I just put a little bit of oil on that O-ring, kind of left over from here. Put your finger in there, get some oil on there. Make sure it's oiled up really nice. That helps it seal. And then you just slide this over the top and push it down into place. That's where it lives. Next, take your oil filter, slide it down in here, and it should click into place. Just like that. The next thing I like to do is sort of prime this filter. And I will take a little bit of oil and I'll pour it down the inside. This makes sure that when the engine starts up for the first time, that we've already got the filter media wet, and you can see it's just wicking up through capillary action. It's just moving up the inside here. See how that works? And then there's also a little O-ring on the tip here. I always put a bit of oil on that as well to make sure that it's lubed up nicely. Make sure your old O-ring or your new O-ring down here on the bottom has definitely got some fresh oil on the outside of it. Alright, now this is primed and ready to go in the Jeep. The tools that we're going to need to install this in the Jeep is pretty much just a torque wrench. So we'll want the same socket that we use for disassembly, and we'll use a torque wrench. Now I'm going to use this kind of torque wrench. This is a pretty old torque wrench that I've had, and our torque spec is 19 or 20 foot-pounds. Very, very light torque. You might have a click type. This is more common new style torque wrench, but like I said, today I'll use this dial. Alright, let's go put it in the Jeep. Okay, back over at the Jeep, we're going to take our filter assembly, and we're going to go ahead and just drop it right in. Thread it on down. Okay, get our torque wrench out. Got a little ways to go here. Could have used my other wrench for this stage, but that's okay. All right, now once we get close, we're going for something like 19 to 20 foot-pounds. And close counts. Looks like we've got it there. Don't turn anymore. There we go. That's that. After this step, it's always a good idea to wipe everything down with a towel. I inevitably drip oil when I do this. It's nice to keep this clean. It never looks so bad at first, but after you go down a dusty road a few times, all that loose oil that dripped around in here will get caked up and nasty. Keep your engine clean. Alright. Next, it's time to refill the engine. The 3.6 liter Pentastar is a 5-quart engine. So you're going to need 5 quarts of Jeep calls for a 0W20 weight oil. So here's how we do that. We already removed the oil cap from earlier, you remember? We set it aside, so that's still open. It's good to use a funnel if you've got one. If not, it's probably possible to pour it down. I don't have a funnel, so what I do is I've cut the bottom off of an old oil bottle, and I just set that in here, and that's my funnel. Then take your oil and you fill it with all 5 quarts. Once all 5 quarts are in the engine, go ahead and remove your funnel. Replace the filler cap. And at this point, it's a good idea to to actually run the engine very briefly, just for a little bit. Let it idle and then come down, and then turn it back off. Let it sit for a couple of minutes. Once you've done that, you'll want to make sure that you've got the engine completely full. And to do that, you'll need to locate the dipstick, which is this yellow guy right here. You need a clean rag. Grab the dipstick out and take a good look at it. We've got, this is the full line. That's the needs 1 quart line. So you can see clearly the oil goes all the way up to the full line. Once you've made sure that the engine is full of oil by checking the dipstick and adding oil until that oil goes all the way up to the full line on the dipstick, go ahead and return the dipstick and close the hood. To reset the engine oil life gauge, go inside the Jeep and put the Jeep into the on position or the run position. Cycle through your screens till you get to the vehicle info screen, and move to the right until you get the oil life gauge. Then you push and hold the OK button to reset. And that's it.